Hi, my name is Nicole and welcome to another yoga flow. Today I am bringing you a full moon yoga flow. So the intention for today is to kind of be complete, do a complete full stretch of the body. So it is full body. As with the full moon, we have some themes in terms of mental, physical, and spiritual, as well as intellectual. The full moon signifies quite a lot of things. So if we're looking at the lunar cycle, the new moon is a really wonderful time to slow down, recharge, come back to center. It's a very slowed type of energy. We get to kind of reflect on everything that happened in the lunar cycle past. In the full moon, however, it's a great time for you to look into new opportunities. We're really charged up, we got a lot of energy to use, and I wanted to create a flow that really put to use that really amazing energy and steps a really good foot forward into a new lunar cycle. So for today's flow, we are going to begin standing. You don't need any props for this flow. However, if you do have blocks, I will be showing you some variations for some poses. And also more than welcome to have a strap if you would like. This flow is going to take us about 30 minutes to do. And without further ado, we will get started. So we're going to start standing, as I mentioned, in mountain pose. So mountain pose. We're going to start with the feet under the knees and the knees under the hips. So a nice, beautiful straight line here, and we're really going to work on foundations here. So foundationally, we're going to bring the hands out to frame the hips. Palms are going to face forward towards the top of our mats. And we're going to just do a little bit of a check here. So if we're slouched like this, we're going to imagine bringing ourselves back to center and really squeezing everything to the spine. So watch this chest, right? We're just going to squeeze the scapulas together. My chest rises. I come to stand here. Okay, we're going to take a look at the pelvis. We're going to notice if the pelvis is maybe a little bit pushed out, and if so, we're going to just grab the outer hips and just kind of tuck it just a little bit. Again, really trying to bring everything in line with the spine. Okay, hands here. We're going to work on foundations here just for a moment. So we're going to extend the feet out to the sides, really planting the toes and heels into the ground of the mat. And from here, we're just going to lean forward ever so slightly. Not really curling the toes too much here. We're going to lean back to neutral. We're going to lean over to the left. Very good. Coming back to neutral and lean over to the right. Reminder, you can create balance for yourself anytime, really coming into those foundations, right? Those the feet. Really digging yourself down into the earth, planting the roots. Come back to center and lean back ever so slightly, trying to keep those toes on the ground. That was a reminder for me too. And then inhale, come back up to center. Very good. Now that we've got foundations down, we're going to take some stretches. So the bottom half of the body is going to stay the same. In terms of the hands, we're going to inhale, bring hands up all the way up to the sky, and as we do so, close the palms to touch together. On the exhale, we're going to dip on over to the right side, getting a really beautiful side body stretch on the left side, and we're going to hold 3 breaths here. You can also interlace the fingers together if that feels a little bit more comfortable for you. You can take the right hand and hold the left wrist, kind of pull it a little bit, get a little bit more of a stretch. And on the inhale, come back up to neutral or center, and exhale, switch sides. Coming right over to the left and holding here 3 deep breaths. Very good. I'm going to turn face the top of my mat. You're going to bring the hands just up, holding your hands straight up, palms are touching. And you're going to gaze upwards towards the ceiling, come into this extended mountain pose, and then we are going to exhale, swan dive down, fold forward. Now this is going to be a very passive, very simple fold forward, so we're not really doing anything crazy here. You can lift up through the fingers, let the head hang. You can wrap your hands around the back of the legs if that feels good for you. You can bring the hands to the top of the feet, whatever feels good for you. Shaking the head no, getting a little bit of mobility there in the neck. And then once we're ready, we're going to inhale, lift, flat back. So you can do this a number of ways. You can keep your fingertips on the mat and just try to extend through the back, pushing away from that mat, or you can bring your hands up right above the knees and trying to create a nice flat line with that spine. So we're not dipping too much, the head doesn't crunch down or up, everything is in beautiful alignment. Very good. Exhale, plant the palms down to the mat, step back, left foot, right foot. We're coming into our plank pose, or our downward dog. So for down dog, we're going to press the tailbone up towards the ceiling, really melting that chest down towards the toes. Head is glancing down towards the toes. And we're pressing away from that mat, right? Really trying to keep that nice straight back here. And we're going to do just a little bit of paddling through the heels. So alternating each heel as you lift and give each calf a nice big stretch here. Take notice if one calf is a little bit tighter than the other. And if it is, I'll invite you to just hold the bend on the leg that isn't so tight and give the brunt of the stretch to the leg that feels a little bit more tight for just 2 deep breaths. And if you want, you're more than welcome to, of course, give it to the other side. Very good. All right, let's get flowing. So keeping the left foot on the mat, right leg is going to shoot up. And at first, we're going to keep the hips parallel with one another, so in a nice straight line, if we can. On the next inhale, you're going to bring that leg up higher and higher and bend at the knee, sending that foot all the way down and towards the sit bone. Coming to a really nice hip stretch here. Take a nice deep breath as you guide that leg forward and step between the hands, coming into a runner's lunge. Now for these lunge poses, if you'd like, you're more than welcome to grab some blocks. Use them to give yourself just a little bit more lift, a little bit more length, and take some stress off the wrists, okay? So from here, lowering that back left leg down to the floor, untucking the toes, we're going to come into a low lunge. So instead of keeping our hands on the mat, we're going to push up and come up to a crescent lunge. So the back is arching forward, the chest is being pulled forward, almost like a string pulling through the chest. The hands are up, the back leg is grounded to the mat, holding here 2 more breaths. One more. Very good. Exhaling, bringing those hands right back down to the mat. Now we're going to tuck the toes, lift that back leg, coming back to our runner's lunge. From here, we're going to take a nice, deep breath in as we lift. Woo. Coming to high lunge. Woo. Woo. And if you lose your balance, that's okay. Just make sure you get back into it. So we're going to hold here in this high lunge, bending at the back leg, keeping the back left heel off the ground. Hands are up facing the ceiling, or if this is a little difficult, hands come down to heart center or even the hips. Okay. Next inhale, you're going to turn your back toes almost parallel to the mat, but not fully. We're going to keep a nice little bit of a turn towards the left side of the mat. Arms come out, right hand in front towards the top, left hand toward the back, warrior 2. Now, at this time, if you'd like a block, we are going to go into half moon. So if you want, you can put that block right in front of your foot. I'm going to move back just a little bit, give myself a little bit of room here. There we go. And we're going to hold that warrior 2, 2 more deep breaths. Very good. On the exhale, right hand is going to come down to that block that we placed previous. We're going to engage through that core and inhale, lift that back leg up. Get used to this footing here. And then try, if you have a wall behind you, of course, more than welcome to use it, to shift your hips to stack one on top of the other. Flexing that back foot, try and bring it in line with the hip. And then if you can, bring that left hand up, half moon. Holding here, just 2 deep breaths. good. To come out of this, we are literally just going to inhale and push off. Try to come back to warrior two, even if it's a little messy. That's what we're gonna try. And again, it's not important that we hold pose perfectly. What's important is that we get back into it when we fall out. So, now that we're in our warrior two, we're gonna hold just one more deep breath here. Very good, and then we're gonna inhale. Straighten that front leg, turn the body towards the long edge of the mat. Once we're here, our toes are going to be turned to the left, towards the right, ever so slightly. We're going to bring the arms out at a 90-degree bend in the elbow. And on the next exhale, we're going to bend at the knees and squat. Bringing those knees open to open up through those hips, coming into our goddess pose. So we're going to hold goddess, 3 deep breaths. Really feeling the power coming from the hips. Sinking down a little bit lower for that last breath if we can. Very good. Trying to keep a nice straight back. And inhale, reach, reach, reach all the way up. Bring those toes forward. And on the exhale, you're going to fold down, coming into a wide-legged forward fold. If you'd like to at this time, you can grab a block. If it helps, you can settle into this forward fold on your forearms, on the block, on the floor, you know, whatever feels comfortable for you. And we're going to take 4 deep breaths here. Just catching our breath. Good. Raise yourself up to lift, coming into almost like a halfway lift with a flat back. Keeping the left hand on the block or mat, right hand is going to come up. We're going to take a little spinal twist here. And we're going to hold 3 deep breaths. And if you can, gaze up at that right hand up towards the ceiling. Excellent. Exhale, bring that hand down to the mat. And this is where we're going to start to turn it around a little bit. So from here, we're going to walk our hands over towards the bottom edge of our mat. So turning, 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 and coming into our runner's lunge. We're going to take a full, it's called mandala flow. So we're going to make sure that we rotate ourselves fully around the mat for this flow to remind ourselves that we are whole and complete like the full moon, and to signify the completion of a cycle, as the full moon is the completion of a lunar cycle, getting ready to start over again. So on the exhale, we're going to step it back and bring the body into our downward facing dog to take our chaturanga flow. All right, so inhaling, bringing the body to that beautiful high plank, pressing into those heels. Exhaling down, scooping up forward to come into up dog or cobra. Tucking the back toes, lifting those hips to come into our downward facing dog, and then gently bringing the feet or the knees to the floor, big toes touch. Child's pose as you rest your head on the mat. So we're going to take about 6 deep breaths in this child's pose, and if you are someone who suffers from acid reflux, it may be more helpful to you to have a block under your head during this time to keep the neck in line with the spine. You can also just stack one arm on top of the other and kind of rest the head that way. Or if it feels a little bit better for you, instead of coming into a full child's pose, you can kind of do this in between where your forearms are planted on the ground and you're just kind of gazing down towards the bottom of the mat. That way the head is a little bit more lifted. So we're just going to take a couple deep breaths here. The reason I'm here is because you hear me a little bit better when I'm here. But it just reminded me of that really lovely variation that I like. So to finish off this flow on the other side, we're going to again rotate in a circle. And as you're in this child's pose, I want to kind of remind you that life is always a cycle. So what do I mean by that? In life, there are ups and downs. There are things that happen around us, that happen for us. and they're constant. So imagining life like a wheel or like a cycle, where let's say the middle part is the base of a wheel, right? The middle turning mechanism in which everything rotates around it. We are that middle. That mechanism never turns. That mechanism stays the same. But if you'll notice a wheel, what happens on the outside is everything turns around that mechanism. So everything in life is not us turning consistently. It's our circumstances. It's external forces that maybe we can't control. A lot of the time we can't control. And sometimes it doesn't seem like it's super great, and other times it seems like it's really amazing. But the point is, it is a cycle. And if you are someone who feels that maybe you've been in this downturning cycle and you don't love everything that's happening, or maybe life is a little chaotic, just know that the wheel is always turning. So things always get better. You're never stuck anywhere permanently. So just take one more deep breath before we go to the next side, focusing on that completion of cycles, and seeing where you can apply it not only to your life but to your practice. And we'll go to the other side. So I'm going to bring my block over to the back end of my mat and come meet me in our downward facing dog. Okay? Move up a little bit. Okay, so to start this practice, we're going to come to our three-legged dog. So this time the left leg lifts up, 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 all the way up, trying to at first keep that leg in line with the hip. And then on inhale, bending at that left knee and trying to stack that left hip on top of the right hip, holding for one big breath. Good, and as you breathe, guide that knee forward, 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 and step. Runner's lunge. All right, feel free to adjust here if you need. Exhale, lower that back leg down to the mat, untuck that back toe. And when you're ready, engage through that core and inhale, lift up. We're going to come back to that crescent low lunge. So pulling that chest forward, nice arch in the back. Holding here, 3 deep breaths. You can even connect the hands if you'd like. And if you would like, you can even close the fingers, point the index and thumb back, imagining a nice line of energy you're creating that's being sent out through the fingertips. And exhaling, coming down, back to our runner's lunge. Tuck back toes again to lift that back knee on inhale to come back to our runner's lunge. And when you're ready, engage that core again. We're going to get ready to lift to our warrior or our high lunge. Sorry. So inhale and lift. Little bend in the back leg. Holding here. Just a couple deep breaths. Very good. Turn back toes, arms open out towards the long edge of the mat, warrior two. Now we're going to come back into that half moon. So if you'd like, go ahead, move your block just a little bit. You can come out of warrior two if you'd like. Get yourself ready. Make sure you have enough room behind you. Big breath in. Exhale, bring that hand down to that block. Inhale, kick up. Stacking again one hip on top of the other as you turn, rotate the body towards the right edge of the mat, flexing those feet. Trying to keep that leg in line with the hip, holding here. 3 deep breaths. Very good. Get ready to inhale and push. Come back to that warrior two. Very well done. There's always one side where it's a little bit easier, a little bit more complicated, and it's always good to just notate that. Now to complete this full rotation, we're actually going to take a little bit of a difference here. So we're going to take our hands and on inhale, turn to face the top edge of the mat, coming back to that high lunge just for a second. From here, we're going to step the feet forward and together, coming into our mountain pose, to then step back and open the body up towards the opposite edge of the mat. So really fully making sure that we're taking that mandala effect, right? Okay. So from here, we're going to point the toes towards the left and right, hands come out towards the sides, and when we're ready, we're going to take a nice bend at a 90-degree angle in the arms. Exhale, lower that pelvis down nice in a nice straight line, holding in this goddess 3 deep breaths. Sink a little bit lower, and inhale, raise the hands up as you turn those toes just to face a little bit more forward, and exhale, dive on down towards the floor to come back into that wide-legged forward fold and make space as you need. Grab a block if you'd like. Holding here again, 40. Very good. Right hand is going to stay on the blocker mat. Left hand comes up, taking that twist again, 3 breaths. And if you can, gazing up towards that left hand. Exhale, lower that hand back down to the mat, and then get ready to walk the hands towards the top of the mat, turning the toes. As you come towards the top of the mat still, with that left foot turned, we are back in our runner's lunge. All right, so we are going to exhale, step back to come to our downward facing dog, and we'll take a flow. So inhale, coming to plank, pressing into those heels. Exhale, diving and deep and down to come up towards our up dog or cobra. If your legs are all the way down, coming to lift the hips to our downward facing dog. All right, and then lowering the knees down to the mat, untucking the toes, child's pose. So we're going to hold that child's pose again, 6 deep breaths, and bring our blocks maybe back to the top of the mat. And what I'll ask that you do here in your breaths this time is just check in with the body. Now that we've done that full, complete mandala flow, see how your body feels now versus how it felt when you started your practice today. And just take notice to how you feel now versus when you started, and maybe how that cycle, that completion theme, can apply to your everyday life. So we're going to do a couple more breaths here. So just thinking on practice, thinking how practice can also be applied to our everyday lives. Where in our lives are we seeing the theme of maybe feeling stuck? Where can we remind ourselves that the cycle is never ending and that it is continuous, and where there are downs, there are ups, and vice versa, as the wheel is always turning. So 2 more deep breaths here. Very good. I will invite you to lift up through the fingers, walk the hands into the groins. If you're in a wild child's pose, we're going to bring those knees together and come into a thunderbolt. So feet are untucked, straight behind you. Hands are going to come onto the thighs or the knees. And we're just going to hold here. We're going to work on a little bit of posture here. So again, if you're finding yourself rounding, chest kind of collapsing into itself, you're going to inhale, bring those scapulas together, and feel that engagement in the back, and then notice how the chest rises and is pulled forward, and then everything above is also pulled up into a beautiful alignment with the spine. So we're going to hold here. Breathing. One more breath. Very good. So for the next pose, might be beneficial to have some blocks with you, and you can bring them right behind your feet at whatever level is comfortable for you. We're gonna do a camel variation and then we can attempt camel, or I'll do half camel. So I'm gonna show you a couple different ways to do camel. So the first way is I'm just gonna bring my hands to those blocks. Actually, I'm gonna take the level down a little bit. So if you can't necessarily reach the floor, this is a really good variation. So just bring your hands behind you, fingers pointing towards the bottom of the mat, pulling the chest up, and just feeling the engagement here. So feeling the arms pressing into those blocks or into the floor if you can, pulling the chest forward. And if you want to, what we can do is inhale, pull pelvis up and up and up as we kind of round through the back a little bit, making a little bit of space. Holding here. Variation, you can keep your right hand on the block or floor, left hand can come up. After a couple breaths, you can, of course, switch sides, or you can complete camel, putting your hands on the floor, letting the head fall back. We're only here for 3 more breaths. One more. Very good. Exhale, lowering the pelvis down and back to that original thunder pole. Very well done. That's not an easy pose in any sense of the word, so congratulations on trying it. We're going to come straight into staff pose. So we're going to extend the feet down towards the bottom of the mat. Now, staff is an engaged pose. So if you are coming into this pose and your feet are just kind of hanging there, again, you're rounding in the back, we're going to bring a little bit of awareness to this pose. We're going to bring a little bit of engagement. We're going to flex the toes towards the top of the head. That's going to create engagement throughout the legs, which is awesome. Hands are going to come straight on top of the thighs. We're going to squeeze scapulas together. If this is a little challenging for you, you can use your blocks to frame your hips, keep them on the side, and have that kind of reminder of how it feels to engage those scapulas. I feel like you can feel it just a little bit more. All right, so we're going to hold staff and just feel the effects of this engaged pose. Good. Inhale, bring the hands up, glancing up towards the ceiling, not crunching the neck. And if you want, this is a really great time to get your strap out if you have one. Exhaling to fold forward, just coming into a passive fold forward in the spine. So grabbing at the toes, the ankles, your strap, whatever you have, and holding here 3 deep breaths. Release the hold you have, and inch by inch, come to sit up, right back to a full staff. Bring the forearms behind you, framing the back. Pull the chest up and forward. We're going to come to a fish here. Keeping the neck in line with the spine. Holding. One more breath. Very good. And then from here, you can just come down, all the way down onto the mat. We're going to take 2 more poses before we end today's practice. First one is we're going to bring the feet back onto that mat so the knees are pointed up towards the ceiling. The hands are going to frame the hips. We're going to inhale, lift, pulling the hips up and towards the ceiling. We're going to tuck our shoulders under ever so lightly, and if you'd like, you can interlace the fingers here, trying to lift those hips up a little bit more while keeping the knees in line with the hips. Bridge pose, super engaged, 3 breaths. And exhale, lower. Release the hands if they were interlocked. Lowering back all the way down to the floor. Lift those feet up, bring the knees to the chest, wrap your arms around them, come into a little bit of a ball here. You can keep the neck on the spine of the mat. And then you're just going to roll back and forth. If you'd like, you can, of course, grab the feet, come into a ball here. On the exhale, or on the inhale, I should say, you're just going to gently release, coming back down to the mat. Feet are going to come all the way down towards the top of the mat. Hands are going to rest at the sides, coming into our corpse pose. As always, this pose isn't super supportive of the low back, or you'd like a little bit more support. You can bring the knees out to the width of the mat and let the knees fall into each other. And hold here. Coming into the close of our practice, I'll invite you to, once you're comfortable, find your calm. So find your natural breath rhythm and allowing your breath to return back to it. We're not influencing our breath anymore, we are noticing it. We're going to gently close the eyes, let the mouth fall just a little bit open to make sure we're not willingly holding any tension in the jaw. If the shoulders are scrunched up towards those ears, we are going to release them willingly. If the hands are clenched, we are going to open them, flipping the palms up towards the ceiling to signify that we are open to receiving new energy, new opportunities, new love, etc. Taking it all the way down to the feet. We're going to make sure the toes are not flexed up towards the head, but rather just free to fall, free to hang. And as we are in our savasanas today, again thinking back to the theme of today's practice, where in your life can you apply the metaphysical theme of today's flow, which is, again, understanding and knowing that you are not in a constant change, but rather your circumstances and what happens around you is. And I know we have this relationship with stress. Not all stress is bad stress. And I want you to really focus on that when you think about cycle completion. There are, I'm sure, many times where you've had a wonderful new opportunity, where that might have stressed you out a little bit, but in the best way possible. Maybe a new challenge approached that really paid off, or you took a risk that really paid off, or you went on a blind date and you ended up in a really happy relationship. There is good stress as there is bad stress. And today, that was a really beautiful example because we put our body through stress, but a very good stress, to teach ourselves, teach our body what we're capable of enduring, which in this case was releasing and opening, strengthening the knees, the glutes, the back, and showing ourselves that maybe we're stronger or more capable and more resilient than we think we are. So the next time you come into a cycle that may be full of downs or chaos and you're not sure how to ground yourself, I want you to think back to stress and how not all stress is bad stress, and how the cycle always turns. So even if this stress isn't the best at this time, know and take solace in the fact that it too shall pass. I will give you a couple moments, and then I will wake you, and we will finish today's practice. Gently begin to bring consciousness back to the body. You can start to wiggle fingers, wiggle toes. Maybe you take a nice big rejuvenating inhale through the nose. and out through the mouth. Maybe after that exhalation, you take a gentle smile. And as you're ready, you can gently flutter the eyelashes and the eyelids and begin to open the eyes and awaken. And once you're ready, take your time. You can roll over to one side, bring yourself to any seated position that is comfortable for you, and we will close today's practice. So to close, we're actually going to take something a little different today. We're going to bring our hands out in front of us and close the eyes, imagining a full and complete circle that we draw out with our hands around our body, closing it behind us and behind the sit bone. We're going to inhale and bring it forward again to close the circle, reminding ourselves as we do this, and take it one more time, that we are not our circumstances and we are not our external factors. We are just a witness to them. As we close that final loop in that circle, we're going to inhale, bring the hands up overhead, holding in our hands every reminder, every bit of stress that we created for ourselves, every lesson we learned, and every little bit that we held on to in today's lesson. As we close our hands in between, or everything in between our hands, and lower all of it down to heart center, we know that what we did here today never leaves. And as we bow forward, namaste, we signify that it's done and cannot be undone. Thank you so much for flowing with me. Happy full moon. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your days and happy new lunar cycle. I will see you next time for a brand new flow. Bye.